It's a great day. My name is Shay Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the number one business development and revenue focused late night show in the country where we're on a mission. And our mission really is to empower, our mission is to inspire, and our mission is to provide you. That's right, you. That's you watching, you listening, wherever you are, the entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this particular episode, we have the one and only Carrie Moore, who's in the building. And yes, we'll be talking about the game of life and how to play it, the pivotal rules to live by, and so forth. I can't wait to share. But what's going on, Carrie? How are you? Welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show.
Oh, I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to be here. It has just been fun getting to know you a little bit over the last couple of days, and to be here on the show is just perfect. So
Well,
let's go.
was glad to have you here. And folks are looking, they're saying the game of life and how to play it. And they're reading the pivotal rules. It sounds so like it's going to be so hardcore, and it is. But can we break it down for the person that's listening right now that says, look, hey, I'm just curious. Why are people struggling today with peak performance? Why are they struggling to be the best version of themselves? What's holding them back? And that's a loaded question, obviously. But I'd just like to know, how come people just can't be peak performers these days and get along? What's holding us back?
No, I love the question. I think we've moved into being a really impulse driven society. And tech's driving a lot of that. But I would have said a few years ago, it was about how do you make sure you respond versus react. Now we're just pure impulse, like how we get the notification on our iPhone or smartphone. And so where that's playing out is how people are communicating, how they're negotiating, how they're building influence. How well do they even recognize their surroundings? Much less are they listening. And then more importantly, do they know how to read the room? Are they there? Are they engaged? Do they actually know what's going on? Or is it just, again, like the Apple phone, boom, 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 boom? That's how they're seeing things. And a lot gets missed in that. And it has a way of catching up with you, and both personally and professionally. So yeah, let's figure out how to be better communicators, better leaders, and how we're engaging and connecting.
You talk about being better leaders, engaging and connecting. Before we started, you and I were having this behind the scenes conversation, and you were talking about the power of mindset. And then you happen to look over my shoulder, and y'all can see right now, and I have the Mamba mentality behind me, by the way. And one of the things that you said quickly was, hey, Shay, we've got to have the right mindset. And you talked a little bit about why you admired the book and the myth himself, late Kobe Bryant. Take a moment, if you would, and just talk about why folks still struggle today with mindset. I understand there's mental illness. We get that part, but just having the right mindset and being able to stay focused and locked in on what they should be in order to be a peak performer.
Yeah, well, I think a lot about mindset and peak performance, whether it is literal sports versus, the game of life, and how you might be playing it out in business, is how well you have an inner model. What is your inner reality that you believe to be true? And inside of that, you've got to have a commitment around what that architecture is and how you see who you are. And Kobe Bryant was one of the best who had an inner model. He had an inner identity that he crafted out, and he committed to it. And he represented the highest form of discipline and how he lived that next 200 feet every day. And so one of probably the biggest things that I see, and look, this isn't about me being perfect. I've made every mistake, and I've also made all the right moves as well. I've done both. But what you end up figuring out is, if you're living your life by what it looks like out here, you're living in the rule of effect. If you want to flip the script and actually define your reality, because you create it no matter what, you've got to be an inner model. Inner model is the cause. So what does it mean to live the cause versus watch the effect? What do you think about that?
I like that. Live the cause. And as you were saying that, I'm thinking about two individuals that normally tune in, by the way. We have some individuals that are dualpreneurs. They work a full-time job, and they're also in the corporate space. And we'll get to your background in a minute, but you have a lot of experience. Some of you are already reading her bio, understand. Some of you are already Googling her, get it. But for the person that's listening that says, well, Carrie, all that sounds great in the perfect world, but I'm in the corporate space and I'm locked in this box and I have to deal with a leader that doesn't see the way you see. Okay. And so it's kind of holding me back from being a peak performer. And so my question is for the person that has to, I'm not going to say negotiate, not going to say communicate, not going to say manage the boss or manage the manager. What's one or two steps or ideas you would share with that person? So if they feel like they're locked in that box and their manager doesn't get it, they need to communicate their thoughts and feelings. What would you say to that person that's listening and watching now?
Well, I've worked in both worlds now. Like I spent over 20 years in corporate, but I've spent the last 7 years in startup in the tech space and financial services, fintech, health tech. So I've seen both sides of the equation. So for anybody out there who's having a challenge, the first thing I'd say to you is people are people. And so you got to remember that. And you can't be defined by somebody else's belief system. Now, that doesn't mean you go into work and you break up, you quit your job and you make a demand or whatever. I'm not saying that. But the first thing you've got to do is you've got to own yourself. Like the first step is to have an accountability to what you're willing to accept. So there's a really important mindset feature where we decide how we balance between being the observer of things that aren't ideal, which means we don't have to engage, we don't have to participate, we don't have to get in an argument, we don't have to win over the other person, versus what's the greater vision? What's the greater vision of you have? And so if you're in a job that is not ideal, then give it a time frame. Call it this is like the chapter that's coming to a conclusion, and then begin building towards the better environment, the better leader, the better position, the better culture. Candidly, I think culture's dead. We need community. And what does it mean to be in the environment where you're in a container where you get to be you and you get to really excel? I love talking about zones of genius. And so know your zones of genius. Your zones of genius become your circles of confidence. And when you stand inside that and you stand next to people or in their same circle of confidence, that's a very different experience. So if you're not in that, trust me, there's a way to transition towards that. And you don't have to like shed blood to get there.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
Someone heard the word zone of genius and they may be hearing it for the very first time. And they're like, well, Shay, what is her definition of zone of genius? I mean, can you slow down for a moment? She said zone of genius and I need to be there. I'm not too sure what she means by zone of genius. So, we'll have her slow down for a minute, maybe give us her view of the world, her perspective on what is the zone of genius and how do you, again, this is a lot, but she can handle it. What is the zone of genius? And maybe how do you know what yours is, or how is this process you go through to try to figure out what it is, right? Or is it just another word for purpose? They might have that as they're listening right now. So if you don't mind, Carrie, break down zone of genius, if you would.
Sure. What is the most natural flow state thing that you do? It's effortless. Like you do it well. You don't think about it. You probably don't even think like the number of steps or sequence that might be a part of what you're doing. So a lot about that is your core strengths. And so if you had to ask yourself, what are the three things that I've, in the last 10 years of my career, let's just say 10 years is a timeline for someone, or what are the top things that you do in your business that you just do in really an incredible way? Like you're the person who needs to come in the room and do that. And you've been able to create a way that is unique to you and how you deliver it and get it done. And so I come from a place that we're all human beings. We're flipping fantastic. We're all intentional in how we come into this world and who we are. And we've got way more than, say, 3 zones of genius. But I like to live by the rule of 3. So if you found your top 3 and you're like, wow, this is like where I'm crazy mad good. This is like when I show up, this is what people count on me to deliver. Knowing that and beginning to build your job, your career, your life around those things, that's one of the first steps that you start just creating flow versus friction. I often meet people who are inside of careers and jobs, or they own businesses that they don't like or they can't stand. And it's like they're already an indentured servant where they're like, gotta do this. And again, I'm not saying you quit the job. Everybody's got to pay the rent or pay the mortgage, but life is just way too short to be not doing something that is flow or enjoyment for you in terms of whatever you call the day job.
I
What do you
love it.
think?
I love the flow analogy too, as she weaved that in at the end, ladies and gentlemen. Some folks don't know who you are, by the way, Carrie. I know you think the world knows you, and you think some folks are going to read the bio. You would think that, but other folks are busy right now. They might be cooking right now. Maybe they're at the gym. Maybe they're in the car. Maybe you're listening to this while you're doing something else. And this is something that you tune into, by the way. You're like, I'm listening to Carrie Shea, but tell us, who is this person? What's her backstory? What led her to doing what she's doing now? That would be pretty cool. So take a moment, if you would, Carrie. Tell them, who are you? What's your backstory? And what was that pivotal moment that you knew to help people win at the game of life, and also teach them how to play it so they can win at the game of life, became your jam?
Oh, I love that. Well, first of all, thank you to everybody who's listening. And I appreciate if you've come this far into the interview, thank you. But I'd say my background, I spent more than 20 years in corporate banking and capital markets. That's a highly competitive, performance-based industry. It's very much the kind of culture, and where I came into this, it was very much about if you didn't win enough, you didn't get to keep the job. So you were always very mindful of if there was a list of 40 people, someone drawing a line, and anybody below the line, you didn't either get a bonus or you didn't get to hang around. And so I naturally chose that environment. I think I was pretty competitive growing up. And I was into to sports and running and a lot of things like that. So I just had that sort of that intel chip that I wanted to compete and I wanted to win. And so that natural pace played there. In my career, 20 years, corporate banking, capital markets, working for the big banks, doing transactions, working for big global clients, as well as raising capital. And I did get to this place 7 years ago last month. So that was my anniversary, where I really wanted to pay forward the skill. And, I didn't want to spend another 10 to 15 years where it feels like it's Groundhog Day. I'm doing a lot of the same things over and over. And I was truly enjoying paying for the skills inside of the division of business that I was responsible for. I had a pretty big head count. And so teaching people how to win and how to manage global relationships and build technology, it was pretty fun. But there was still something missing. And I think it's my connection to humanity, my desire to want to make the world a better place. And so I took that leap 7 years ago and didn't have it all figured out. And so for anyone like me that takes the leap, good on you. I want to just totally celebrate your courage if it was like mine, where you took the leap and you said, I know I have a skill set. I know how to be at the intersection of something. Mine was capital, technology, people, smart people who want to build kind of disruptive, innovative things and make a difference. And so I went there in that direction, and that took me to the startup world. And that's where I began my path, which over the last 7 years, I've spent a lot of time helping to build new companies, raise capital, really building in another level set of my knowledge around investors, venture capital, private equity, family office, things you got to know when you're a founder around what capital means there. Again, how do you win? How do you scale? How do you bring things in and build something that's meaningful? So that's where I am today.
I love it. How do you play the game of life, But more importantly, how do you play it to win? She keeps throwing that in there. She didn't say just play. She didn't say just go along. You heard she say she's competitive, by the way. She says, I show up to win. All right. I show up for one reason and one reason only. She didn't say everyone gets a trophy. Look, we all get trophies for just showing up. She said, no. Someone I like it though. I mean, I think it's spot on. But you also add on it a component. You got to be able to communicate, negotiate, and build influence. And I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about build influence. Is it the build influence with the circle of folks we're around? Is it build influence within ourselves? Take a moment when you talk about pivotal rules. You mentioned that building influence is one of the key three that's on there. Negotiate. Okay, maybe we can figure that out. Got that. Communicate. Okay, a lot of different ways to do that. We could do a whole show probably on communicate. But build influence takes interesting. Yeah. Tell her why is that one of the top three, and what was your thought process behind it?
Yeah, well, I think it first comes from a place of self IQ. So how well do you know yourself? I think how well you know yourself, how well you trust yourself is what really leads and guides you when you're at the living room table, dining room table, boardroom table, wherever like you're negotiating for either peace of mind or you're trying to create an opportunity. And so that self IQ, which is, I talk a lot about it in terms of just know your pure instincts, because at the end of the day, that's what people want from you, right? People buy products or services, or they do deals with you, or they go on vacation with you, they marry you, they have a dating relationship with you, you name it, right? Because they want you. And so one of the most important pivotal rules is be you. And so you got to take the time to figure out what that is, know what your strengths are, and play them. And that allows you to not talk over people or to compete at the table. Because one of the greatest strengths you have when you're in business is that, just like how you are right now in your podcast, you know who you are. You love what you do. And it just it's yummy. It exudes through this entire podcast. You love being behind that microphone, and it's why it makes me so easy to be here. And I think this is the perfect example of one of the smartest things you can do is not look out here and try to be all the players that are out there. Be you at that table, because if someone invited you in, they want you there, right?
I love it. As we're listening to you, by the way, they're saying, wow, man, I might be thinking, well, she has it all together, Shay. Let's get her to this segment. Today is my January 1st, because is her life perfect? We want to know. We want to know. So we have a segment here, Carrie, called Today is my January 1st. And I know for those folks that tune in every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, maybe you wait to say those words because it's so relieving. It gives you not hope, but it gives you perspective. It gives you possibilities. And for some of you, it makes it predictable to be able to say those words. Today is my January 1st. And for all the new folks, you're tuning in for the first time. Welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show. Welcome to the family. I encourage you to subscribe, pay this message forward, share it with someone else. But today is our January 1st represents our personal creed. It's a fresh start. It's a do-over. It means our past, no matter what the past is back there, it doesn't really matter what's happened back there. Our past no longer equals our future. So my question to Carrie, she's on the other side, is that when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear, number one? And number two, what was one of your January 1st moments? The time you had a setback, things didn't go the way you wanted them to go, but you had to bounce back from it.
Yeah, no, I love this question. Well, first of all, my answer to this, I think, really speaks to what I hope I carry now as a little bit of wisdom, having been in the corporate life and now been a founder and running my own business. And so I think there's this mentality out there, since we're talking about Mamba mentality and otherwise. But I think when we look at it in business, we say, wake up, grind it out. And what I want to challenge a little bit there, not about hard work, but we can grind it out a little bit too much. There is a way that in how we live and we push and we just go after the wind, that we can really create an earthquake moment, whether that's in our health or otherwise. Now, for me, I created it in my health. And so I was running and gunning. I was in the corporate life, and I started having little health problems the fast story is that I didn't realize that the level of stress and how I was running, flying around, this entire lifestyle, San Francisco, New York, global airplanes, I didn't realize that my body, in reaction to all of the stress, I had stopped making blood. And so they estimated for like about 2 years, I wasn't making blood. Now, I was a marathoner, I was a triathlete, I was a managing director inside of a very large bank. I ran a global division of a product line that was huge. And I'm just running and gunning. And I'm starting to not feel well. I'm starting to have challenges. No one can quite figure it out. Fast forward, one day I get up, I'm 19 pounds less. And I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, you know what? I think I need to go to the doctor. I think I probably need whatever, you fill in the blank. A few hours later, I'm in the emergency room. 3 days later, I'm being told that they believe that I have leukemia. 3 more days later, they're like, it's not leukemia, but it's another disease with your blood, which is why you're not making blood. And so in that 7-day window, I had to like really have the earthquake moment where the iPhone, the BlackBerry, like all the devices, none of that even mattered. I'm laying in a hospital room. I've been told that maybe I have a terminal illness. I'm being told to call my parents and my family. I have the tubes and everything. And I'm realizing, wow, is this the result of all the ways that I have been just running and gunning and trying to win? And I say all of that when I find out that it's actually an autoimmune disease, I find out the way that we can recover. I spent a couple of months on disability. On the other side of that, when I went back to work, that's when I said, you know what? I got to start living better. Now, everything in my life was pretty fantastic on paper, but I had to not take some things so serious. I had to create more balance. I had to bring self-care in. I had to realize what stress does to the body long term. If you had seen me the year before, I ran 17 marathons, you would have thought, wow, she's in incredibly great shape. In reality, I was probably really unhealthy. My body wasn't making blood anymore. And so I bring all this stuff up. Last week was Mental Health and Wellness Week, and we're talking more about just what all this stress and tension does to us. But that was my big wake up moment when I realized that balancing really matters and we're not limitless. And there's a way that we can really perform better as leaders and as people.
Wow, thank you for being so transparent. I didn't know you were a marathon runner. I run 5. You dropped 17, so my 5 don't seem as cool anymore.
Not 17 marathons. I ran 17 races that year. And in total, in over 20 years, I've only ran 7. So, yeah.
Oh, I just ran 17 races, Shay. I didn't do 17 marathons. I did 17 races. I hear you. I feel you over here. She's like, I'm still a competitor now. I still got it in me.
I do, for sure.
Well, I wasn't that fast. I was a 9.5 minute marathoner, so I wasn't a fast person, but I enjoy running as well. As we're coming down the home stretch, I'm just curious. One of the questions I love to ask folks before we get down the home stretch is, what's one of the best pieces of advice you've ever been given, right? I know you've had so many mentors. Some you maybe watched online, maybe some you met in person. But of all the mentors you've had during this journey of life, because I believe that success is a team sport, you really only get so far by yourself, right? What's one of the lessons you've learned on this journey of life from any of your mentors that you hold near and dear to you, you're going to share with us? And you at home, this is when you get to lean in, by the way, because you get to walk away with a lesson that you can use for the rest of your life. That's one of the benefits of showing up. You get one idea, you implement that one idea, and your life is forever changed. So what's one of the best pieces of advice you've ever been given from any one of your mentors?
Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Just always follow it up with, I'll find out. And someone taught me that when I was in undergrad and I was interning, and I lived by that rule. And when I was first called to ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, BP, and first call means when the crap hits the fan, you get the first call. in terms of, so BP pipeline, not rather PG&E pipeline explosion, the BP Horizon explosion. These are big deals, right? You get the call because somebody needs money. So when someone calls you, no matter what the situation is, if you don't know, you don't know. But build the confidence that you'll find out. And in that next step of, when I would come back to find out, this was the greatest opportunity to learn and make a decision with a client together, or whoever it is. So we've got three options. Let's weigh and measure the options, and then you decide. And that's where that teamwork comes into play, which was really compelling. So I built my client relationships on that.
So what do you do for fun these days when you're not out saving the world, helping us all win at the game of life these days?
Well, I'm talking to people like you, getting to know people like you. That's super fun. I love simple pleasures. I live in Miami, Florida, so I live in paradise. So everything right outside the door is pretty comfortable. The beach, cooking, reading, time with friends, sunrises and sunsets. That's probably my jam. I'm
Yeah. I like that. What does success look like for you these days? It sounds like that might be it, but I'm just curious, when you go back and you look at your life, you say, man, this is what success looks like for Carrie these days. This is what it feels like for me.
I love this idea that we're all a miracle to somebody else. Or we never know, this one little thing that we do for someone, we don't know what we're doing and what their life becomes. And so I do a lot of what I call sponsorship. I believe sponsorship is skin is in the game. Like, you're going to go kick down a door for someone, and that's sponsorship. Mentorship I love equally as well, in terms of working with the next gen, in terms of whether it's college students or otherwise. And so I always wonder sometimes, when you do this one little thing, whether it's a piece of advice, or you call someone your network, you help someone get a summer job, you help someone find an investor, you name it, you never know the ripple effect of what you've just done, because that one person is going to impact a whole string of things. And so that simple multiple I live by, that if every day I do one thing in the course of the day, at least one thing for somebody, I might be stacking up a lot of really incredible things for humanity. And I love that.
I love what you're doing. What type of clients are you looking to work with these days as we come down the home stretch? And how can folks best connect with you? How can they stay in this conversation with you over and beyond today?
I was looking forward to this. So to your universe, I will put out a challenge. I am looking for 5 to 7 leaders, CEO, founders, next generation leader in the making. If you're looking for an opportunity to work with someone like me one-on-one, I'm looking for you to be a decision maker, coachable, flexible. You understand that you're inside the jar and you cannot read the label, and you need someone like me to help you read the label. So if you're interested in that one-on-one, and you're willing to invest in yourself, then fantastic. I'll give you my email. Secondarily, for those of you who can't or don't want to do one-on-one coaching, but they like the idea of being in a community of individuals who are taking it to the next level, I have a group program as well. And so if you're interested in either, contact me at carrie@carriemoore.com. That's my email. And I love and trust what this community might be about. Contact me direct and let me know which one you're interested in.
That is super fantastic. Let me say, first of all, thank you so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I loved it. Thank you so much. My best to everyone.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for showing up. Isn't life just part of showing up? And you showed up. You're here. We appreciate it from the bottom of our heart, because without you, there is really no show. And this is a resource center for you and for all that you know. And so 11 o'clock, 11:30, whatever time it is now, I love to share the words. And I never get tired, but I want you to know that as you're watching, that you really are a fantastic human being. You really are someone really special. Even if no one's told you that, no matter what the circumstances are, that you have so much greatness inside you. Not only do you have greatness inside you, but because you're watching now, because you're here, because you're awesome, I believe that today truly from the bottom of my heart is your January the 1st. Because of just that one reason alone, your best is still yet to come. Isn't that encouraging? Your best is yet to come. The better days for you are ahead of you. My name, by the way, is Shay Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone. And I promise you, from the bottom of my heart, we'll make some good things happen. We connect again next time. God bless and wish you success. Thanks a lot, Carrie. We out of here. Peace, everybody.